If you love stories where cheaters get exactly what they deserve and karma serves up the perfect dish of justice, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell because at Revenge Janet, we serve up fresh revenge stories that will leave you completely satisfied. Trust me, you would not want to miss what's coming next. My name is Janet, and today I am going to tell you about the most satisfying revenge I have ever executed. This is the story of how my cheating fiancé thought he could destroy my life, steal my business, and run off with my best friend. What he did not know was that I was recording everything, planning everything. And by the time he realized what was happening, it was far too late. It all started 3 years ago when I met Marcus at a business networking event. He was charming, successful, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. We clicked instantly, and within 6 months, we were living together. A year later, he proposed, and I thought I was living in a fairy tale. What made our relationship even more perfect was that Marcus seemed to genuinely support my business. I had built a successful digital marketing agency from the ground up, starting with just me and my laptop in my tiny apartment. By the time I met Marcus, I had a team of 12 employees and was pulling in 7 figures annually. Marcus would often brag to his friends about his entrepreneur girlfriend and how proud he was of what I had accomplished. But there were signs I should have noticed. Little things that seemed insignificant at the time, but would later make perfect sense. He was always asking detailed questions about my business operations, wanting to know about contracts, client relationships, and financial projections. He claimed he was just interested because he loved me and wanted to understand my world better. Marcus worked in sales for a tech company, and while he made decent money, it was nothing compared to what my business was generating. I never made him feel bad about this. In fact, I often included him in business dinners and networking events, introducing him as my fiancé and giving him credit for supporting my dreams. Everything changed 6 months before our wedding. I started noticing that Marcus was being secretive with his phone, staying late at work more often, and seeming distracted during our conversations. When I asked him about it, he would brush me off, saying work was just stressful. I trusted him completely, so I believed him. The first real crack in my perfect world came when I noticed that my best friend Sarah was also acting strange. Sarah and I had been friends since college. She was my maid of honor, and she worked as a freelance graphic designer. I had hired her for several projects over the years, and she was practically family to both Marcus and me. Sarah started canceling our usual coffee dates and seemed uncomfortable whenever Marcus was around. When I asked her about it, she claimed she was just busy with work. But something in her eyes told me there was more to it. The turning point came on a Tuesday evening in March. I had come home early from a client meeting that ended sooner than expected. As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Sarah's car parked down the street. This was odd because she had told me earlier that day that she was swamped with deadlines and could not hang out. Even stranger, when I entered our house, it was completely quiet. I called out for Marcus, but there was no answer. His car was in the garage, so I knew he was home. As I walked toward our bedroom, I heard voices coming from my home office. My blood ran cold as I recognized both Marcus and Sarah's voices, but they were speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Instead of barging in, something told me to listen. I am so grateful I trusted that instinct because what I heard next changed everything. The contracts are all in her name, but if we can get access to her business accounts after the wedding, we can transfer everything, Marcus was saying. Are you sure this will work? I feel terrible about this, Sarah replied, her voice shaky. Look, she trusts both of us completely. After we are married, I will have legal access to everything. We can slowly transfer clients to our new agency, and by the time she realizes what is happening, it will be too late. She will be financially ruined, and we will have everything we need to start fresh together. I had to grip the wall to keep from falling. My fiancé and my best friend were planning to steal my business and run away together. But the worst part was how calculated it all was. Marcus had been planning this since the beginning, using me to build connections and learn about my business, so he could steal everything I had worked for. What if she finds out before the wedding? Sarah asked. She would not. She is too trusting, too naive. She thinks everyone is as honest as she is. Besides, even if she suspected something, she would not believe it. She loves us both too much to think we would betray her like this." The cold calculation in his voice made me sick. This was a man I had shared my bed with, my dreams with, my entire life with. And he was talking about destroying me like I was nothing more than a business transaction. I quietly backed away from the office door and left the house as silently as I had entered. My mind was racing, but one thing was crystal clear. If they wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I won. The first thing I did was drive to my lawyer's office. Without going into details, I explained that I needed to protect my business assets and personal finances before my wedding. I restructured everything, creating additional legal barriers that would make it impossible for Marcus to access anything even after we were married. Next, I went to a private investigator I had worked with for client background checks. I hired him to document everything about Marcus and Sarah's relationship. I needed proof of their affair and their business theft plans. But the most important thing I did was install recording devices in my home office and several other rooms. I needed evidence of their conspiracy, and I was going to get it. Over the next several weeks, I became an Academy Award-worthy actress. I continued planning our wedding, acting like the excited bride-to-be, while secretly gathering evidence of their betrayal. The recorder in my office captured multiple conversations between Marcus and Sarah as they refined their plan to steal my business. I learned that their affair had been going on for over 8 months. They had been meeting at Sarah's apartment, at hotels, and even in my own home when I was traveling for business. Marcus had been feeding her inside information about my clients and business strategies, which she was using to slowly start approaching them about switching to her design services after they launched their new agency. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Marcus would gain legal access to my accounts after our marriage, and they would gradually transfer my clients to their new agency. They had even picked out office space and were planning to hire away my best employees. By the time I figured out what was happening, they estimated I would lose about 70% of my business, leaving me financially devastated and emotionally destroyed. During this time, both of them continued to act like nothing was wrong. Marcus would come home and kiss me, telling me how much he loved me and how excited he was about our future together. Sarah would text me about wedding preparations, and even helped me with dress fittings. The rage I felt was unlike anything I had ever experienced. But I channeled that rage into something productive, planning the perfect revenge. I decided that their plan had one fatal flaw. They were counting on my trust and naivety. But what if I used their expectations against them? What if I let them think their plan was working while I orchestrated their downfall? First, I created fake documents that made it appear as though my business was even more valuable than they realized. I left these documents where Marcus could easily find them, knowing he would share the information with Sarah. I wanted them to think they were about to steal something worth even more than they had imagined. Second, I started a secret campaign to document everything. The private investigator was gathering photo evidence of their affair. The recording devices were capturing their planning sessions. I was screenshotting text messages and emails. I was building an airtight case. But I wanted more than just evidence. I wanted justice, and I wanted it to be public. The opportunity came when Marcus suggested we have a joint bachelor and bachelorette party. Just something casual with our closest friends, he said. I think it would be fun to celebrate together. I agreed enthusiastically, while internally smiling at how perfect this was going to be. This party would be the stage for their downfall. I planned the party for the week before our wedding. I invited about 30 people, all of our friends, family members, and several of my business associates who had become personal friends over the years. I rented a beautiful private dining room at an upscale restaurant, complete with a projector screen for toasts and fun presentations. Marcus and Sarah had no idea what was coming. The week before the party, I made my final preparations. I compiled all the recordings into a comprehensive presentation. Photos of Marcus and Sarah together. Audio recordings of them planning to steal my business. Screenshots of their romantic text messages. Bank records showing they had already opened joint accounts. Lease agreements for their secret office space. I titled the presentation, "The Real Marcus and Sarah, a Love Story Built on Betrayal." The night of the party arrived, and everyone was in high spirits. Marcus was playing the role of the devoted fiancé perfectly, giving a speech about how much he loved me and how excited he was about our future. Sarah was right there beside him, smiling and nodding along. After dinner, I stood up and clinked my glass. "I would like to share something special with everyone tonight," I announced. A little presentation about love, friendship, and the importance of trust in relationships. Marcus beamed at me, probably thinking I was about to give some sentimental speech about our relationship. Sarah raised her wine glass in a toast. I dimmed the lights and turned on the projector. The first slide simply said, "What happens when the people you trust most decide to destroy everything you have built?" I watched as the color drained from both Marcus and Sarah's faces. The room was silent, everyone confused about what they were seeing. The next slide showed a photo of Marcus and Sarah kissing outside her apartment building. The timestamp showed it was taken just 2 weeks earlier. Gasps filled the room. I heard my mother saying, "Oh my God," and Marcus's father cursing under his breath. But I was just getting started. The next several slides detailed their entire affair with photos, text message screenshots, and even snippets of audio recordings. I had edited it all together into a devastating timeline that showed how long they had been betraying me. Marcus tried to interrupt. "Janet, stop this right now. This is insane." "Sit down, Marcus," I said calmly. "We are just getting to the best part." The next section revealed their business theft plan. I played audio recordings of them discussing how to steal my clients, transfer my accounts, and leave me financially ruined. The room was dead silent except for the sound of their own voices admitting to conspiracy and fraud. Sarah was crying, but I felt no sympathy. These were the same tears she had cried when I comforted her through her own heartbreaks, never knowing she was planning to cause me the ultimate one. The final slide showed bank statements, lease agreements, and business registration documents that proved they had been preparing to steal everything from me. I had documented their entire conspiracy. When the presentation ended, the room erupted. My family and friends were shouting at Marcus and Sarah. His own family looked mortified. Several of my business associates were already on their phones, probably warning their networks about what they had just witnessed. Marcus tried to salvage the situation. "You do not understand. This is all taken out of context. Janet, we can work through this." But I was not done yet. "Actually, Marcus, there is one more thing," I said, pulling out a folder. "These are lawsuits for breach of contract, theft of proprietary information, and fraud. You have been served. Both of you." I had spent weeks working with my legal team to build cases against both of them. Marcus had signed confidentiality agreements regarding my business information, which he had clearly violated. Sarah had used information I had shared with her in confidence to solicit my clients for her own benefit. The party ended with Marcus and Sarah leaving in disgrace, followed by his family, who were apologizing profusely to me and my parents. But the best part of my revenge was still to come. Within 48 hours, word had spread throughout our entire professional network. Marcus was fired from his job for violating ethics clauses in his employment contract. Sarah lost multiple clients who found out she had been planning to steal business through deception. The office space they had leased? I bought the building and evicted them before they could even move in. The employees they had planned to poach? I gave them all raises and bonuses, ensuring their loyalty. Marcus tried to contact me multiple times, claiming he still loved me and that we could work things out. He seemed to think that what he had done was just a mistake, and that his feelings for me were still genuine. The delusion was almost pitiable. Sarah sent me a long letter trying to explain her actions, claiming she had never meant for it to go so far, and that Marcus had manipulated her into the scheme. While I believed he might have been the mastermind, she was a grown woman who had made her own choices. She had betrayed 17 years of friendship for a man who was using her just as much as he was using me. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Marcus and Sarah's relationship had imploded. Apparently, when faced with the consequences of their actions and the loss of their anticipated windfall, they turned on each other. Sarah blamed Marcus for ruining her career and reputation. Marcus blamed Sarah for being too emotional and messing up their perfect plan. The last I heard, Marcus was working at a call center for a fraction of his previous salary, and Sarah had moved back in with her parents and was working at a coffee shop while trying to rebuild her design business from nothing. Meanwhile, my business not only survived their attempted theft but actually thrived. The publicity from their failed scheme, combined with the support I received from my network, brought in new clients who were impressed by how I had handled the situation. My revenue increased by 40% in the following year. I eventually found real love with someone who genuinely supported my success rather than trying to steal it. Someone who celebrated my achievements instead of plotting to take them away. Someone who understood that trust is the foundation of any relationship, not something to be exploited and destroyed. Looking back, I realized that Marcus and Sarah did me a favor in the most twisted way possible. They showed me what I deserved and what I should never accept. They taught me that sometimes the people closest to you can be the most dangerous, and that protecting yourself is not paranoia. It is wisdom. The recordings I made were not just evidence. They were insurance. They ensured that no matter how charming Marcus could be or how much Sarah cried about her mistakes, the truth would always be available. They could not gaslight me or rewrite history because I had documented everything. Some people have asked me if I feel bad about how publicly I humiliated them. The answer is no. They planned to destroy me in the most intimate and devastating way possible. They were going to steal my life's work, break my heart, and leave me with nothing. The fact that their plan backfired so spectacularly was not my revenge. It was natural consequences. They gambled everything on my trusting nature, and lost everything because of their greed and cruelty. That is not revenge. That is karma. The best part of this whole experience was not watching them fail. It was realizing my own strength. I had always seen myself as someone who trusted easily and loved deeply, which Marcus had counted on. What he did not realize was that those same qualities, trust and love, when betrayed, can create a determination and focus that is absolutely unstoppable. I learned that sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is refusing to be a victim. Instead of falling apart when I discovered their betrayal, I chose to take control. Instead of confronting them emotionally, I planned strategically. Instead of suffering in silence, I made sure the truth was heard loud and clear. Now, whenever I tell this story, people always ask how I kept my cool for so long while gathering evidence. The answer is simple. I knew that my revenge would only be satisfying if it was complete. A moment of emotional confrontation would have given them the chance to manipulate the situation, play the victims, or cover their tracks. By waiting, by planning, by documenting everything, I ensured that when the truth came out, it was undeniable and devastating. They could not claim it was a misunderstanding or that I was overreacting. The evidence spoke for itself. I also made sure that my revenge was legal and appropriate. I did not try to ruin them beyond the natural consequences of their actions. I did not spread lies or try to hurt them in ways that were not related to what they had done to me. I simply made sure that everyone knew exactly who they really were and what they had planned to do. The wedding we had planned would have cost nearly $50,000. Instead, I used that money to take my family on a luxury vacation to Europe. We called it my freedom trip, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. To this day, I keep the evidence from this situation in a secure file. Not because I am afraid they will try something again, they learned their lesson, but because it reminds me of what I am capable of when someone tries to take advantage of my kindness. Trust is still important to me. Love is still important to me. But I have learned that true trust must be earned over time. And real love does not involve planning someone's destruction behind their back. Marcus thought he was clever, planning the perfect crime against someone who loved him unconditionally. Sarah thought she was being smart, aligning herself with someone who could give her financial security and business success. What they both failed to understand was that their betrayal said nothing about my worth and everything about their character. The man I am with now knows this story. He knows what happened and why I am careful about certain things. But he also sees how it has made me stronger and more aware of my own capabilities. He does not see my caution as baggage. He sees it as wisdom. Some people might think that what I did was extreme, or that I should have just broken up with Marcus quietly and moved on with my life. But that would have meant letting him and Sarah get away with plans to steal everything I had worked for. It would have meant allowing them to potentially do the same thing to someone else in the future. By exposing them publicly and legally, I made sure that their actions had consequences, that anyone considering trusting them in the future would know exactly what they were capable of, that other entrepreneurs would be warned about people who pretend to support their success while secretly planning to steal it. My revenge was not about hatred, it was about justice. It was about making sure that people who plan to destroy others face the consequences of their choices. It was about protecting not just myself, but anyone else who might have fallen victim to their schemes in the future. Even now, years later, I occasionally run into people who remember the story. Some of them tell me that it inspired them to be more careful in their own relationships and business dealings. Others say it helped them realize that they deserved better than partners who did not genuinely support their success. If there is one thing I want people to take away from this story, it is this. You do not have to accept betrayal quietly. You do not have to let people who plan to hurt you get away with it just because you love them, or because confrontation is uncomfortable. Sometimes the best revenge is simply making sure the truth comes to light. Sometimes karma needs a little help to find its way to the people who deserve it. And sometimes the greatest victory is not just surviving someone's attempt to destroy you, but thriving despite it. Marcus and Sarah thought they had found the perfect victims in a trusting girlfriend and a loyal best friend. What they actually found was someone who, when pushed too far, could outplan them, outmaneuver them, and ultimately outplay them at their own game. That is the power of refusing to be a victim. That is the satisfaction of serving justice to people who think they can take advantage of kindness. And that is why, even though what they did hurt me deeply at the time, I now consider it one of the best things that ever happened to me. It taught me who I really am when everything is on the line. And I like what I discovered.